Coming up on the Big Footy St Kilda podcast, we review our Round 18 victory versus Fremantle, we preview our Round 19 clash versus the Gold Coast, and we take a look at our list. Who's on the chopping block, who's safe, and who's going to be traded. All this and more coming right up.
Oh, when the Saints go marching in. Oh, when the Saints go marching in. Oh, how I want to be with St Kilda when the Saints go marching in.
Yes, and welcome to the second episode of the Big Footy Saints podcast. I am Pakenham Saint, and joining me tonight is Persevering Saint. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, man. I'm feeling it.
Yes, and also joining us tonight. Last week we called him the Eddie Maguire of Big Footy.
Get stuffed.
Is Cookson. How are you, Eddie?
I'm not Eddie. I'd like the numerous chins, the man boobs, and the fact that I haven't completely and utterly destroyed my football club.
So have you got anywhere else you need to be later tonight or anything like that? Cookie or...
Oh, yeah. I've gone over to Nathan Buckley's house.
So when do you want the 7-figure check in the mail for the appearance fee?
Oh, no. I'm in uni to starting. Need them textbooks.
Obviously, starting off first tonight, the massive news that we won a game of football.
Yes, bask in the glory that is us.
Yes.
Taking us all the way from the bottom of the ladder to slightly less on the bottom of the ladder.
But we smashed Freo, which is what more than plenty of teams can say this year, apart from Hawthorn.
Yes, we defeated Fremantle 17-16, 118 to 9-6-60.
Let's not defeat, let's call it a smashing.
Yes,
well, I think
especially because Ross Lyon was involved. That's the other factor that comes into this.
Well, I think last week most of us were expecting a massacre of some description.
Oh,
were right.
You think?
We were half right.
Yeah.
Half a mark for us.
I found it funny how many of our fans logged into, they didn't get to see the game or something, and they logged in at the end of it and went, "Oh, here we go. Oh, have they got those around the right way?" Logged into AFL.com or something, saw the result and went, "Wasn't it meant to be the other way round?" Hey, so yeah, it was a really, really great win. Yeah, my best friend's a Hawks supporter, and the worst thing about him being a Hawks supporter is that he's actually a really nice guy, and so he hasn't sent me a text pretty much, since April, and then he sends me one last week saying, "Congratulations, that was unbelievable, no one expected that kind of thing." So yeah,
it was genuinely shocking. I mean.
Yeah.
You read other things. I mean, let's be frank. We smashed Freo.
I think most of us when the first goal was scored, whoever was there was probably going, "Yep, call the game off now. We're in front." No. Yep. Then we got to quarter time, and we kept going nearly quarter time, like 4-3 to a point to Fremantle. And I was like, "What's this?"
Well, they did score a goal on the end. Just at the end, didn't they?
Shenton, I think, gave away a free kick and they got it inside 50, I think.
To be fair, Shentz was never going to stop that. That was a really beautifully placed ball. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, probably the good things was that they listened to us, our masterful coaching skills that we said last week. We said Josh Bruce in, 3 tall forwards, and we utilised the space better.
Yes. Yeah.
I think we definitely... We took the game on this time. We were using the corridor a lot, and I don't think Fremantle could defend that.
Mm. Well, I was interested. I was reading a really interesting analysis of the game by Tony47, actually on Sensational, and he was saying that up until that game, it had been like the coaching staff have actually been seeing it as like dominoes. And to get all the dominoes to work, you need to have, obviously them all lined up properly. And there were just 3 or 4 dominoes that were in the team that just didn't click. And the thing is, if you've ever seen, a domino fail, it only takes like one at the beginning. The rest of it could actually be seamless. But if at the very beginning the first one you click and then that fails, you don't see the rest of the brilliance. And he was saying that's actually been the problem for us, is that all of the pieces are ready. It's just you've got to make sure that those one or two places that were not, linking properly, started to click. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened with the Fremantle game, is everything just clicked, I
think someone you could probably put in that category is Shane Savage, who we had him. He was a bit disappointing at the start, but the game was just, his game was absolutely brilliant off halfback.
Was it like 80-something disposal efficiency? I mean, he kicked some bullets. I mean, there was that when he ran past Delaney, got the mark.
Yep.
Just stood there. Like, you could tell he was going to give away the handball, gave the handball, took the Freo guy on, ran another 20 metres, delivered it straight onto either Rewald or Stanley's chest, and I think Stanley kicked the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Shenton for us was a good in as well. But I agree with you. I think Savage really brought just so much poise, just so much poise to that, to running in and stuff like that. He's becoming almost that. I'm not suggesting that he's as good as Dal, but I remember, when you saw Dal kicking into the 50, you kind of knew it's in safe hands, and I'm starting to feel a little like that with Savage as well.
How do we view Nick Rewalt going up the ground a bit?
It works because Stanley became the main, like, he dropped deep. Like, well, as we know, like, in soccer, when you have two forwards in soccer, they need to work together. One needs to remain up, one needs to drop deep, and that's what happens. They work together. It's like Stanley remained forward, patrolled the 50-metre arc, and Rewald dropped deeper, which confuses defenders as they don't know whether to say, do I go third man up down in the 50 and risk getting screwed there and risk my man suddenly appearing at the 50-metre arc centre half forward and kicking the long bomb, or do I go with him, but that opens up the 50?
Because I think we saw that quite often where we had either Rewald go up the ground, he marks the ball, he would kick it to Stanley would wait, Rewalt would run straight past, and on occasions you had Nick Rewalt marking the ball.
Yeah. I think the other thing that comes into that, there's two things. You can't underestimate the advantage. Well, actually three things, you're right. The Josh Bruce factor. But I was actually thinking you can't underestimate the value of Reece Stanley's ability to kick goals from outside 50. I think that allows a lot more
buried patterns.
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard for defenders to be able to defend that much space. Like once we're talking at the 50, there's just so much space. So that's one thing. But I think the other thing with Nick that I think is we've always assumed that him not playing as a major, primary forward means that he has to sacrifice his game. I think what this showed was that's crap. Yeah. Okay, he played a game where he was, running away, and we thought, oh, he's sacrificing his game. He still kicked 4 goals.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the fact that he's going to play this role doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to kick less goals for the sake of Stanley to kick them or something else. I think potentially it could mean that he kicks as many goals as he would if he was to stay, in the square forward.
It'd probably help him too.
Yeah.
Because he's not always staying there and he won't always have that opponent on him.
Exactly. I think the thing of him sitting in, the forward line means that he is inevitably a target for 3 players to all converge on him and all that, as we've seen over many years. This means that he'll have much more of a one-on-one kind of a situation. It's interesting. I also watched over the bye weekend, I watched the Essendon game, and I was reminded of how much he just took Hurley, I think it was, his defender, and just made his life a living hell.
Yeah, in fact, the Hurley is a fat bastard.
Well, this is true. And his haircut doesn't help either. But I think him, Nick Riewoldt being actually released to go charging up and down the ground like that, not only opens up space in the forward line, gives him more opportunity for one-on-ones, but it is going to make opposition backline players feel like they just wish they could crawl into a hole and die.
Yep.
You know,
we need to Richo him up. Do what happened to Richo. It's like, do they risk putting on a defender who will run out of gas, or do you risk the midfielder who will be physically outmuscled? I mean,
yeah,
we're at that stage where we could be quite smart with him and essentially turn him into pretty much how do I put it? Not a centre half forward, but not a midfielder, more of an attacking mid in a sense.
You'd almost want to call it something a little different, and that's a forward rover. You know, like a rover who runs around on the midfield doing what rovers used to do in the classic days. You know how like they used to talk about ruck rovers. Yep. It's almost like you're having a forward rover kind of role.
I suppose going back to Stanley, would it be fair to say this is his breakout game?
Yep, I mean, he showed it in the past, but now he's getting his athleticism going. I mean, he's 200 centimeters.
Oh, 204.
That reach he has
big reach.
Marking is huge. A ball that probably go over Riewoldt's head would land in Stanley's palms, basically.
Yeah. Which is good, considering how many times the midfielders actually kick over Nick Riewoldt's head.
They used to kick it to Stanley. We now know why. It's planning.
That one-handed mark he took, I mean, it was quite obvious that the opponent, he had nowhere to go there. You know, this is the thing that I think we're going to start to see with Stanley, is that just no one can, if he's in one-on-one or even two-on-one situations sometimes, he's just not going to be able to be stopped with his reach, his height, and his strength.
He wasn't on any mark. He was on Luke McFarlane.
Yeah.
Let's just settle that. I mean, I also wish to highlight a player who I thought played a very excellent game on Nat 5 was Maverick Weller. I mean, completely blanketed him. Yeah. Like, I'm thinking, all right, Fife's going to dominate, but I didn't really see him that much.
No. I think the thing is that there were actually quite a lot of these unsung heroes. So, I mean, we've talked about the structural value of Bruce, but he played in a lot of ways an unsung game, you know, as did Tommy Curran. It was really interesting that a lot of people have been talking about how quiet Curran was. He was one of the few players that Richo in his talk about the GC game, he specifically, you know, named Curran as being a major contributor in the way that he was able to shut down as a defensive forward and still kick a goal and be quite damaging.
Yep. And then also Armitage was a fairly great game, was bollocking.
And of course the highlight of his game was just before quarter time, the handstand.
Yes. And I just want to go back. Cookie, I think it's bullocking, isn't it? He wasn't bollocking.
Oh, it's the same thing.
No, man. They're really quite different.
He was
you need us to draw you a diagram.
We'll call it destroying then.
Right, okay, that's probably a better word.
Made to look second rate.
Yes.
Made his opponents look like big, purple, silly sausages.
And if we are talking about bullocking, though, let's go with that. You're right, Armitage was that. But the other person who was like that, a little bit of a beast about him, is Brodie Bull Murdoch. I really liked his game. Some people have complained, but I think his ending up stats really belie the kind of game he had.
He should have, if he kicked straight, it would have been a very good game. I mean, kick 1 goal 4, 1 goal 3, but
1 goal 3. If he kicks 4 goals, he's getting he's about an 80 on AFL points, Dream Team points. Yeah. And, you know, that's a much better game. And it's not as if he couldn't have kicked those goals. One of those was that one where he kind of just kicked along the ground. He'll grow into that, and he won't do something, you know, like that again. He'll just kick straight through it. That's a maturity thing. But for a kid like him to do the kind of stuff that he did, very impressive. You mentioned Mav Weller.
Yep.
6 tackles.
That's good. That's what we want.
Yeah.
I mean, he was recruited by Gold Coast as a 17-year-old, so he had talent, but unfortunately, Gold Coast have to get rid of players, and let's benefit from it. I mean,
we probably will benefit in the future as well, because GWS, obviously,
exactly,
they're going to have players that grow, players want better contracts. GWS won't go, we can't offer that. Obviously, there'll be a few bargain basement things we could pick up.
Yep. Well, we've already seen that with Bruce, haven't we? You know,
swingman.
Yeah. And how nice is it to have a real swingman like that, and someone who knows how to. That role of locking down as a tall forward was really effective. I'll remember that basically double tackle that he did. That was pretty flipping awesome.
People. And he even won it, and we got a goal out of it.
Yeah.
Baron Rowe scored it, but that's really... You can't really put a stat on goals created.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about 1%ers. He probably got 2 1%ers, so it was kind of a 2%er when he did that. Fantastic effort.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Any other star performances that we know of? I'm just trying to remember.
How do we rate Longer in the ruck?
Well, actually, I was going to mention Longer. One of the interesting things about Longer is he got 6 tackles.
Yeah. That's what's impressive about Longer, is that his ruck work's still a bit to work on, but he's, 20? I mean, 20 still 18 for a ruckman, but his second and third efforts are very, very good. And, of course, who doesn't enjoy a good old sledge?
Yes. Oh, man.
Look at the scoreboard.
Yeah, that was a fantastic moment, wasn't it? How many of us had, I think I counted 3 or 4 of the main big footiers with, that as their avatar, including me. I just loved that. So
we haven't been able to do it often, but take your chances, you take them.
Now, if we're talking star performances, another one that it's really interesting that we haven't actually discussed this. So there's 2, actually. One who scored 116 and another one who scored 115 in terms of AFL type stuff. So I'll tell you this one. Who got 25 possessions, 8 marks, and 8 tackles?
I think it's...
I've got the stats up here.
Don't cheat.
I'm trying to remember the midfield.
Who could it be? I'll give you a clue. Under 50 games. Under 50 games, 25 possessions, 8 marks, 8 tackles.
God damn it, I know it, but I don't know it. I'm trying to remember what the team was.
115 DT points.
It was a player.
I'll let you off.
One of the 22 that were selected on the day.
Yeah, Jack Nunes.
Oh yeah.
Him. And isn't that the way with Jack? It's really interesting to me how quiet he is. There's a guy who's done that, which is a pretty impressive game for an under 50 gamer. And he was just ferocious at the tackle. And yet...
That's the story of Jack.
Yeah, that's the story of Jack. Every single week, he's starting to rack up these incredible numbers and everything like that. No one knows. No one notices. It's almost like he's the invisible man of our team. Even, I could understand if opposition don't really rate him or notice him. But we don't even rate him or notice him. It's really quite odd.
I mean, the way I see it is what, his third year, didn't he average 15, then he averaged 20 last year, I believe?
Yeah.
And now he's averaging 25. So next year, hopefully, averages 30. Maybe he can get a Brown low, just putting it out there. But I see him probably very similar to James Kelly in a way.
Yeah, one of those...
Very hard, very tough. Kind of underrated, is not really noticeable at first.
Yeah, I think he's the kind of player who no one's going to actually notice, and then after about 3 or 4 years, they'll start going, oh yeah, he's not bad, is he? That kind of a thing.
He's probably the best of our young players.
Indeed.
Well, excluding Dunstan, but that's a different argument. But it's just, I reckon he'll poodle along. He's the engine room. He's that old. He's the good old V8, just pootling along. Nobody's really noticing. Then he'll go bang.
Yeah, I think it's that a lot of what he does is not very flashy. There's no highlight reel with Jack. It's interesting. Do you remember how Bull kicked his first goal? He kicked his first goal from around about the 50, and it was after an absolute bullet pass straight to him, probably about the main kicker was probably about 60, 70 out, kicked it right into the 45 on a lead, and it was a flat bullet of a kick. That was Jack Noon's. No one noticed it.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone at the end of the game was talking about Shane Savage's delightful disposal and everything like that. And that's right. But nothing about Jack. And I think that's really interesting. The other person who didn't really get much mention was actually Schneids. Schneids, again, 8 tackles, 24 disposals. 8 marks, 5 tackles, 5 1%ers. Very, very impressive. 1 goal too. And yet very little talked about. And there were people, there's been people who have been talking about, gee, will Schneids retire at the end of the year? He's not going to be retiring if he's getting those kind of numbers week in, week out.
Yep. It's good creative presence up forward, which is always helpful. I mean, also mentioned that Dunstan played another excellent game.
Fantastic game.
I mean, he should have Lenny Hayes as number 7. Let's put that up there. Give him a 5-year contract. I'll give him a Buddy Franklin contract.
You're with the big statements this week, aren't you?
It could work. I mean, keep him out of Port Adelaide and Adelaide's clutches.
Well, that should be easy. Just mention the fact that Adelaide's rubbish.
Hey. How cold is it where you are?
Cold.
Right. Well, it's cold here too, but that doesn't really matter.
Yes, but Adelaide has what attractions?
Well,
other than a church.
Well, it has several churches.
And a stadium now. And
a very nice stadium. And, well, look, we're not here to talk about Adelaide. We're here to talk about St Kilda.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I'm really pleased with that game. So
that probably the only concern was the kicking in the third quarter, really. It was a bit,
should have been 100 points.
Peppering the goals left, right and centre and missing them.
That should have been 100 points, because that was 100 points. 100 points against Freo teams would be like going, righty-o then. Okay. Because what's that done is it's really put the onus on the rest of the league saying, we can smash Freo, why can't you?
And we've also shown them how to do it. Do you remember when we, were in 2009 and stuff like that, and the team that beat us was Essendon?
Yep.
And then other teams started to go, well, I don't know. I mean, Essendon at that time was a pretty poor side. And, people just started to say, well, obviously there's something about the way they do things. Maybe that was what we did for the rest of the league in that game. So,
just hopefully not this week, because Owen Conlon gets smashed.
So
well, they're losing at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't happen to a nicer team.
Yep. Anyway, what about the Gold Coast?
Moving on. Yes, team's out and only the one change this week. It's Cameron Shenton's been omitted and in comes Jack Stephen. I suppose is a very good in.
Yeah.
Shenton a bit stiff or not?
No.
Oh, yeah,
it's
totally.
The reigning best and fairest. I mean, it's like, okay, you're a very good player, but we have our reigning best and fairest, and it's just one of those tough things about footy.
Well, he is listed on the emergency list, so he may or may not be a late change.
He's probably the 23rd man. Yeah. He's the 23rd man out of 22.
Listed on the bench at the moment is Stephen, Ray, Murdoch, and Dunstan. So if there is going to be a late change at all, it'll be out of there.
Yep,
I don't think there'll be a late change. I think you're right. Shenton didn't play a bad game. He's just up against a reigning best and fairest. And in the interview about selections this week, that's essentially what Richo said. He said, look, the fact is that we had probably one too many defenders and we needed one more in the middle. And so
he also said, and that pretty much said that this is the first time we've pretty much had a settled backline.
Yeah.
Which is, good news.
Yeah, very good.
Backline saves the day. We look at the Suns list. Out goes Smith, who's injured. Dixon with the quad. Russell, hip, and Cameron, who was admitted. In comes Michael Wushkatali, Gorringe, Sumner, and the big boot of Mackenzie.
What do you reckon?
Well, ever since Gary well, they're all right.
They've still got a fantastic young midfield. It's just
they've still got a good list.
Gary lack of Ablett probably does.
The Gary Ablett factor.
I mean, they've not won
pretty much since
Ablett.
He's been out. Yeah. They've just not been at same side.
No Ablett, no Suns.
Yeah. And Brisbane touched them up last week by 40-odd points, and they look by far the better side. I mean, we touched up Freo, so I think we probably can win this. But
again, if we play like we did against Fremantle, we will. But
we need to just make their midfield accountable to us. Play the game on our terms. Try to nullify Day and Thompson. Like, they've been very, very good at defense this year with those two. I mean, we need to ensure that Stanley, Bruce, and Rewalt create space for one another, work together in their plans and leads. And probably the key players for the Suns, in my opinion, probably would be, again, Jaeger O'Meara and Dion Prestia.
So I was looking at that. The followers.
O'Meara and Prestia, then. Who do we put on them?
I'd say O'Meara, because O'Meara's probably the one who's more liable to run in one direction rather than Prestia. So, and get Weller in there.
I think Weller goes to O'Meara, and I wouldn't mind seeing Dion go head-to-head with someone in the midfield.
Get Armitage on Prestia.
Yeah.
We need to
just see how that goes.
Do you think we'll match up against, say, even Stanley or Rewalt, for instance? Because Stanley, he had a good game last week. They probably don't want him to have another good game. Who do you think from the Suns will be on them?
They'll put Thompson on probably Stanley, and they'll put May on Rewalt, as May's been in good form. But again, with the midfield, probably we need to stop their run. I mean, they've got Harbrow, who's very, very fast, which probably means head-to-head with Montagna or Stephen. And
who's their most, just looking there, probably Aaron Hall would be their most, sprightly small forward. Is that right? Or
they've got Martin, who could be anything, I mean, and Bernal. And did he play against us last time I think he touched us up last game, last time earlier this year, I believe.
Because I suspect that Tom Curran will go into a defensive forward role again, but there's always the opportunity for him to maybe drift back if necessary. Man alive, I'd love to have Geary back in.
Who signed a contract?
Who signed a contract. I mean, that's the other thing we haven't talked about yet. We'll probably get to that a little later.
But what about tips?
Well, I reckon maybe Gold Coast just. So I think we'll want, because Richo said there's the standard from the Fremantle game. We'll be probably trying out to get that standard, but you can't exactly underrate the Gold Coast because Ablett's out.
I'm going to say 5 goals. I'm going to say that we'll win by 5 or 6 goals.
I'll go for St Kilda by 20 points.
I'm being eternally optimistic, and I don't think we're going to have that many opportunities to be optimistic, but I reckon this game and the Doggies game, they're ones to win.
Yep. I think last week's win has probably told us a bit, hey, if we play all right, we can actually take it to some sides.
I think that dominoes thing I was saying before comes into this. If we get all of the dominoes clicking. It's really interesting. I looked at the outs from the game against the Kangaroos, Donnell and Ross. And Hickey was out also injured, but I wonder if those two in particular, Donnell we know is a spent force and probably will be delisted. And Ross, I think, just needs to keep on building his tank and growing in the VFL for a while. But I think getting those guys out of it for a bit and letting the others come in has just allowed it all to click. And if it all starts to click, and then you add Jack Stephen this week, you add potentially Geary and Gilbert next week, starts getting very, very interesting.
Do we add in Eli, have some more forward thrust and pressure?
Well, not this year, but certainly
next year.
But these three, Stephen, Geary, and Gilbert, they can come in this year, and I think that could make a big difference. So,
Yep. Now,
moving on to probably list management, I guess. Really.
Yep.
And looking pretty much forward to draft and.
Geary has signed the contract. Dempster's signed the contract.
Yeah, Dempster for one more year and Geary for a couple, isn't it? Or
Yep, Geary to the end of
2015. No.
2016 season. Dempster to the end of 2015, which probably is going to be his last contract. I mean, will be 32 next year?
Dempster's 30.
Yeah, so it'll be 32 probably, or 30 or 31, so probably would be his last contract. Or it'll be probably 2016, but yeah.
I suppose looking at the list, we obviously did touch on a little bit. How about Jones? Would you put him up there?
Yeah, I would, but I don't know if they will.
I probably would. I mean, he's lost his tagging presence. I mean, Walla's already overtaken him. We've got Curran, who's better as a tagger.
Yep.
Do you reckon Minchington?
Yeah, I just don't see any role for him anymore.
Do you reckon Minchington will probably get given last?
I don't know. Like, did he do enough? When he played for us, did he do enough?
He's shown enough, but it depends. Do we have the room to put him on the list? If not, we just trade him off to, say, North Melbourne for like a third-round draft pick or something.
I suppose the same could be said for Markworth. He's okay. We haven't seen anything. He's been injured. Do we take the risk and put him on the list for 2015, or do we say, sorry, mate, you just keep getting injured. We just can't have it? Or do we...
I think he'll be rookie listed, Markworth.
Pretty unlucky, isn't he?
The problem with the rookie listing plan is that to do the rookie listing thing, you have to actually delist the player and then leave them for no one else to pick until the rookie list period. And that's problematic because if they're actually a half-decent player, that's potentially going to be a bit of a problem. Where we've done that kind of rookie listing type stuff before, it's always been for players that were, well, frankly, ones that no one else wanted. So I'm a little nervous because I've heard this about Pearce as well. I don't think it's going to happen. It's too much of a risk that we'll lose actually two pretty promising players. I'm not worried about the injuries with Markworth. I think he'll be fine, and he'll be given one more year. If he continues to have injuries like he has, then we'll talk. But until then, I think he'll be fine.
So, what do we view with Saad coming back? I mean, I presume he will be coming back, judging by all the talk coming out of the club.
He will be rookie listed by us. I mean, it's pretty much... There'll be a gentleman's agreement amongst all the clubs saying, yeah, you can have him.
Yep. I would think so. I would think that from the wider club perspective, I think that they would imagine that the way that he's been treated has been pretty deplorable, and it should never have got to the point that it did for drinking a milkshake. And as such, I would imagine that teams will go, they're a bigger fish to fry than trying to, steal him from
recruit the guy with the world's biggest run-up.
Yeah. So
we've missed clapping him in.
Yep.
So who's probably on the... I assume we're probably going to be trading for picks. Who's on the trading block, you reckon?
Well, you've got to ask that question in terms of three questions. The three questions are, who are people that you can't delist? Okay, so they're contracted. That's the first question. Because if they're delistable, then you won't trade for them because no one will want them. anyone that you're going to delist, you can't trade when you're the bottom team. If you don't want them, no one does. So are they delistable? In other words, are they in contract? The second question is, are they marketable? And the third question is, do we not need them? And it seems to me that the people that fit into that role are Simpkin, Sipos, and probably Malera. They're the three. They're all contracted. None of them really are necessary for us. And, all of them are to some degree marketable. Not for very much, but marketable.
I mean, particularly with Sipos, he had, one good year and couple of bad years, really. He just seemed to have fallen off the face of the earth.
The thing is, he went direct from junior footy to AFL. He didn't really have that experience in TAC Cup, which doesn't help, but he's got good skills, but he's just really a forward, though.
Yeah, and the problem that he's going to find is that it's actually interesting because I think Sipos and Simpkin find themselves in the same situation. They would be fabulous for their roles 10 years ago. Or even 5 years ago.
It's a bit like the dedicated ruckman's on the way out, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't just be the guy who taps it. You've got to do something else.
Yeah. They're good players, but wrong era.
Yeah.
It's just like Cozzy, really. I mean, he was, instead of being drafted in 2000, was drafted in 1990. He probably turns out to be one of the best, could be one of the better players.
Yeah.
But it's just, But, I mean, I reckon Sipos probably has good currency. I mean, we'll be, realistically getting third round draft picks for him. So.
Which, I mean, the other thing to realise is that actually all three of those players didn't cost us that much. Okay? When you think about it, part of the point of trading is to up what you got. Okay? So we paid for Sipos something like pick 50 or 60 or something.
75.
75, okay. So if we get a third rounder for him, ultimately, on one level, that's actually a win. Simpkin, rookie listed. Anything you get for him is a win. And Malera, effectively, we got him and Sard for free because we paid a 5...
Pick penalty to get a player we still got, which is Ross.
Yeah, we wanted Ross anyway, and we would have got him at 20, even though we got him at 25. So effectively didn't cost us anything. Anything we get for them is actually a bonus. So,
yep.
I think the other reason why you would do it, and this is probably the fourth reason, is to free up. The question to ask is, will this free up a spot that we need? And I think in a draft like this, that is very, very likely that we could do with using even our third round picks or something like that. Because it looks like beyond that kind of shady area of the first 4 picks, there's actually some gold that's going to be there for quite some time in this draft.
Yep, I mean, let's just have a look. Who do we get? We've got Billings at pick 3. Yet we probably arguably got one of our better players, Dunstan, this year.
Yep.
For pick, 18?
Yep, and 19 is Akers, and the only reason why Akers hasn't been able to do as well as he probably could is just because of first-year injuries. He'll be fine next year and be pretty devastating, I suspect. There were quite a few of us on, the board that were saying that of the 3 of them, Akers was the one they were most excited about.
We need to think positively. We are building a good list.
We might get beaten a few times, but there's always the positive there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also in coaching news, we have recruited Luke Beveridge.
Yes. Welcome home, Luke. It's nice to have you.
We're stealing all the Hawthorn people now, are we?
No.
Well,
we have Pelchin.
Yeah.
Now we got him.
Yeah.
2 from Hawthorn.
But see, the thing about Luke Beveridge is Luke's actually a Saint at heart. His father, of course, is Bevo. So, there's a beating Saints heart there. You don't take
home.
Yeah, he's coming home. Of course, there's the big question of what the hell does he actually do? No one seems to know what a director of coaching actually does. Yeah, we all know the title, man.
We'll have to ask Richo, I think, because he was the director, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So let's look. We've got. Let's see. So we've got Pelchin as our director of football. Or head of football.
Yeah, head of football.
We've got Baines.
Don't get confused with your directors.
We've got Baines as the head of list management / salary cap issues.
No, Baines is out of that now.
Yeah,
He's been promoted. He's COO. So we have Trout as our head of recruiting and list management and stuff like that.
But Baines is in charge of contracts and stuff.
Yes, because he's a lawyer.
He's illegal.
Then we have our first team coach as Richardson.
Mm.
We've got Kingsley, Teague, Sexton, Hamill, Jolly as positional coaches.
Yep.
We've got McPhee as the academy manager / seconds coach with Sandringham.
Yep.
Hudson as development coach.
And Hudson will take over as the Zebras coach next year.
The Zebras coach, yep. We've got Lindsay Gilby, who is probably the skills coach, I would imagine.
Midfield.
Yep.
Primarily midfield.
He just tells them how to kick bullets.
Yes.
He's the guns coach. Then we've got Peter Searle, who's development coach. What does Peter Searle do?
She's primarily backline.
And deals with the young players mainly, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's primarily backline youth. It's really interesting. I heard an interview where I think it was Robertson actually directly attributed some of the development that he's had that's allowed him to get back into the side to Peter's advice.
Because she's had, a lot of experience.
Yeah.
In the game, she's been Port Melbourne. She's done the women's leagues.
Yeah, I think by next year we'll actually start to realise that we got a bit of a coup with her. Yeah, I'm quite excited about what she's bringing to it.
So all our coaches are pretty good. I mean, Richo's, he's very calm in the box.
He is. Oh, there's no doubt about that.
Compared to Mark's house, who's
you look at some of my AFL records from this year, they're all tattered and bruised. And you watch the same game, there's Alan Richardson just sitting there, arms crossed, just...
Zen master.
Yeah, he's very calm. There's no doubt about that.
Even when I think the Port Adelaide game, where something happened and he was picking the phone up, he went to smash the phone, but then he put it down softly on the table. And I think we noticed with Richo is that I noticed at the Carlton game is just he seems to be nice to people.
Yeah.
Like even he shook the hands of the security guard who was looking after him for the day, and
Yeah, he's a really friendly bloke. There's no doubt about that.
He seems to have that element of a leader.
Yes.
I'm going to lead by example. Yes, you be nice to people. You do this, you do that, and the players all seem to just resonate off that.
Yeah. I think the players love him. There's no doubt about that.
Especially when you hear the senior bloke saying, "Oh, this guy's a breath of fresh air. Fantastic."
He needs to start. He's not like Waters, who was probably drank from the malt house ways a bit too much, as we saw what happened with Neil at Melbourne.
Yeah. Oh, you guys are no fun. I've been laying out the joke. Haven't you noticed how many times Richo says there's no doubt about that? No. Seriously. Okay. You watch. It's almost like it's almost as bad as Bruce McAvaney's thing of always ending with a question, like, "Oh, that was a great goal, wasn't it?" That kind of thing. You wait. You watch. Every time he says, "There's no doubt about that." In every interview.
New drinking game.
Actually, I think I've noticed that actually. Particularly when obviously all the losses we've had. Is when he talks about, I don't want to sound a record. Yeah, we've got to develop. Yes, we're a young side. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, every time. So that's his. Yeah, in every interview I've seen, he's done that. It's quite fun. So new drinking game. I definitely think we could make a case for that. So,
I suppose moving on to probably say our last point of agenda is Baumeister announced his retirement.
Effective immediately.
Yes, he had a shoulder injury that put him out for the season. I think he was playing in the VFL and did that.
Now it's career ending.
Well, I
think 41 games for both West Coast and St Kilda. So what's our memories of Bo in his short time with us?
He always smashed Melbourne.
Yes. Do you remember the game where he was absolutely crushing it and then he got subbed?
Yeah.
And he just looked at the red vest like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Why me?
He was on the
Are you serious? Yeah, and I think it was when he had his beard and he looked like full-on feral, like dwarfy feral.
He always did look like a drunk.
Yeah, he did. So, I reckon, like, could be crazy. You get a picture of him and use like a color thing on a photo thing. He's Shrek. Okay, there are pictures of him. I swear they look like Shrek. So,
I suppose what he played when we recruited him, he played the role that we asked him of to play, which is pretty much a forward.
Yeah.
We needed a forward at the time.
He was recruited to fill in a very big blank that we had, which is to help Nick Rewald.
Yeah.
And I think he did that reasonably well, didn't he?
Yeah, I always feel like him not playing after about, he got dropped just before the Essendon game. And I actually feel like we were probably a bit greedy with that because, yes, he hadn't been kicking lots of goals, but prior to that, he'd allowed... So we're all lauding now, wow, Bruce was amazing in that game.
Yeah,
Who could imagine that we could have a defensive forward who would draw players away from Rue and from Reece? Wow. Well, dude, that's actually what Meister did, and that's why we won against Melbourne and we won against GWS, is because those players like Revolt and Reece and those kind of players actually were given space because Bo, while he didn't
had to worry about someone else.
Exactly. And the same with Bruce. Bruce has actually been playing the same role. So I think if you think of it from that point of view, Bo actually performed a very valuable function and probably didn't get the credit that he deserved at the time.
And he did sort of that Justin Kozitzki role of crashing the pack.
Yeah.
Which was impressive anyway.
Making people regret that they played football today.
Yes.
Oh, you enjoyed having non-broken ribs? We should change that.
So yes. Yeah, I really liked Bo. I thought the attitude that he seemed to show, when we had training videos and things like that, he always seemed to be the kind of guy who said, come on, let's get going. It's going to be fun here. I remember seeing a lot of pictures of him at Colorado. And like they're going out in hellish weather. It's freezing cold and everything like that. And he was a very motivational kind of guy.
A leader.
Yeah, great team player.
Unlike Essendon, who went inside the moment it started snowing.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
to have a cry.
And as I think we proved this year,
you can't inject drugs in 0 degrees Celsius. I mean,
wasn't there this whole little Twitter thing where Essendon went, oh, we're going inside now. So, and Saints were like, gee, that's funny. We're coming inside now. We're outside, actually. It's snowing here, too.
Yeah.
And Essendon went, oh, we'll see which training regime's more effective when we face you.
Yeah.
Well, I think we know the answer to that now, don't we?
I think we do.
They couldn't dope, that's why.
So, yes, I'm really proud of Bo. I think he was probably underrated by us in the end, but really good value.
Yep.
And, of course, Geary re-signed. We were talking about that just briefly before. Pretty good news.
And Dempster.
Yep. Yeah, and Dempster just today. Geary was more interesting given that there was some talk that he might be going to the Cats. And I could have believed that. I could believe that he would have gone to the Cats. Good team, everything else.
Need a replacement for Corey Enright.
So I think that's a bit of a win for us. Of course, it does mean that when we come back to the delistings thing, I think a lot of us said, oh, well, we're going to have heaps of space because we're going to retire Sam Fisher. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. Geary will be traded off. I don't think that, or FA'd. That's not going to happen. Gwilt will go. Well, I don't think Gwilt's going to go. So actually, there's a few players that Schneider, we probably thought was going to be written off. But a lot of those are going to stick around for next year, and I think we'll be a better team for it.
Yep.
Well, that's all we have time for. Thank you for joining us, Persevering Saint.
Yeah, always a pleasure, man.
And Cookson, thanks for joining us.
No worries.
The check is in the mail.
Good.
We hope you enjoyed the second episode, and if if you do want to take part in this, there is a thread. Start asking that thread, and we'll see you on the forums.
Awesome. See you guys.
Ciao.